Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now read up by Disney, or come at Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you KOTOR, or Knights of the Old Republic, the comics, not the video game, issues 13 to 28. I know I did a lot. Let's see. I just need a recap here. I guess I've read so much now at this point. The earlier entries are kind of foggy in my memory. Rest assured, if you've already read the first 12, I will let you know that these next issues are great. They're really fun, and I'm enjoying the story overall, and I want to see how it all concludes. I will say we get more cameos from characters from the video game that we will see later on. So there's that to look forward to. And the only thing I can say I didn't like about these issues is the issues that focused on Victor. The first crossover for the storyline with Celeste Morn, I saw her ending to her story in Legacy because I read that first. But I got to see the beginning of her story. I knew, of course, she'd be fine. I've already seen, Legacy, which is, thousands of years later, and she's okay. But the art style in it was too cartoony for me. I did not enjoy it. I don't know, because I really enjoyed the art in most of these issues, but the art in that it's not bad, it's just, I don't like the style, like, at all. Like, everyone looks, like, really goofy looking. They look like Han did. Zane looks like Han from the holiday special cartoon where his face is, like, huge. He looks like Phineas from Phineas and Ferb. I'm just being mean. I just don't like the way they look. But other than that, the story was still good, and I enjoyed it. And I'm excited to see that continued in Dark Times. I think that's the next time the crossover happens is, during the Empire's takeover. So that'll be interesting whenever we get to that. But that is about it, I guess. Overall, the story's progressing. We're still not reaching the end yet. Still got more issues to go. But it's a fun ride, and it's well worth your time, non-spoiler-wise. That's what I'll say. If you've gotten, if you've read the first 12, you might as well read the rest. But I think it's well worth your time. Anyway. Starting with issue 13, to re-jog my memory. Jeriel and Camper leave for a little bit. They leave to go their separate ways. So now it's just Griff and, Zane. Griff gains a life debt with the Trandoshan. The Trandoshan is the species that Bosk is, the lizard people. He saves this stupid Trandoshan, and he's like, pay me back. I owe you my life, man. And so, I don't know, I really like the Trandoshan. He's funny. We see an HK-24, so it's an HK droid, but it's not my HK droid. We won't see him till we get to the video game, but it was still cool to see those things. Issue 14, Rollin. I put question marks because I'm also reading the short story that I'm not going to talk about till it's concluded, because it spans basically, as far as I can tell so far, the entire comic book run. So I guess you would want to read it after you finish the comics. I'm trying my best to read it concurrently with what's going on. I usually stop if it sounds like something I haven't read yet. Let's not get too spoiled. But yeah, it has heavy spoilers for the entire series. So the Secret Journal of Dr. Demigol, you definitely should not be reading until probably the end of the series. Or look up a guide on where to read those. And what parts to read, I should say. But he kills the HK unit. This is where he finally reveals himself that he's been here this whole time. He's been on the ship, and he's going to help them now. We get to see Karth. Karth is one of the very first companions you get in the KOTOR games, and he's actually in quite a few issues, and it's really cool to see him. Zane gets a vision of the planet that he's on, burning. So that goes later. Issue 15. The whole situation is referenced in KOTOR. The whole situation on this planet and stuff going on with the leader of the Republic, or the commander on the ship or whatever. I'm pretty sure, if not this, the situation, I think it's referenced. I'm not exactly sure. I know that his boss is referenced. You know, Karth's boss. But it's just really cool to see all this stuff before the events of the game. Um, Karth's boss was the one who mistook Zane for a spy. I'm pretty sure I mentioned on the last video there was a guy who mistook him for a Mandalorian spy, Zane, and I didn't even realize till a bit later that that guy is the same guy. Sirocco, which is the planet they're on, suffers. It is bombarded by nuclear type weaponry. Issue 16. Master Rana is having visions of Zane, and she wants to kill Zane and Jeriel to end the visions. We get to see the planet Arcania, which is the planet that Arca and Jeriel and Camper are from. I mean, Jeriel doesn't remember her life on there, or she might have been born off-world, but that is her race's home, Arcania. And there's a lot of racism. Like, you have very, very white people, and then you have normal white people that have pure white eyes, kind of like Thrawn, but it's white instead of red. And I just found that kind of funny. Not that racism is funny, just anyway. So that makes you automatically dislike the place, of course, because racism is bad and all. We get to Leader 17, and we learn that the leader of Arcania, he needs Jeriel and Demigol for some reason. He also mentions, finally, in issue 18, basically the big thing with that one is the plague plan. There's these like weird worm things that can multiply and spread like crazy and eat everything they touch or whatever, and he wants to sell it to the highest bidder. So this is going to introduce this story plot where we have the Mandos show up, we have the Jedi show up, well, the Revocanist Jedi, but still Jedi, and the Republic show up and trying to auction who's going to get to have this. Issue 19. When Jeriel first sees Zane, she wants to give him information about what's going on, because Zane shows up. But, to distract everybody, she kisses him, which I just thought was fun. Not because she necessarily has feelings, though I have a feeling she might. And because she wanted to give him info. Alec returns. That's one of the Jedi that shows up. So it's cool to see more of who will become the main antagonist of the video game, to see him show up. Ark, who is the main antagonist of this sort of section of the series, and Lucian are old friends, like childhood friends. We get to issue 20. That's like one of the big things we learn. Here's the thing about this. I don't know if it was that intentional. I do know some future stuff from like the MMO. And I know it's kind of a retcon, but Revan did not necessarily go to war with the Republic purely on his own. I mean, he did. Like, the story is that, like, he had a mission, and he, kind of left that mission to go become his own Sith Lord and stuff. But the idea is that him and Malik came upon somebody else who ends up being a big bad guy in the MMO. But what you learn, I don't know if it's in the book or in the MMO, I don't know where. I just know I've heard this before, that the Mandalorians attacked when they did, and how they did, because somebody else asked them to. So this might be nothing. It's just interesting that there's a section where the Mandalore himself is talking, and even says, "This is not a very Mandalorian war." I may be looking too into this, but it's food for thought. Zane and Lucien are trapped together with a bunch of HKs pointing guns at them, and their entire conversation there is wonderful and just shows the utter hypocrisy of this secret cult. I mean, fear leads to the dark side. This pissed me off so much. So here he is, fear leads to anger, and anger, this is going to lead you to dark side, Zane. The entire pact that these 5 Jedi have made, separate from the rest of the Order, this whole pact that they have made is out of fear of another Sith war, of another Sith Lord returning. Right? This is their whole pact. This is why they killed innocent Padawans in fear of the dark side coming. How did Anakin become Darth Vader? In fear of the ones he loved dying, and his selfishness of not wanting to let that happen. These guys speak about Darkseid and how they're all better than that, and how they're not evil, and how they're the Jedi and they're just doing what's right, even if no one else realizes that, except that they criticize other people for the dark side, and yet their central motivation for having this secret cult, this secret sect, is out of fear of another Eula Quadroma or another Exar Kun. And it just further iterates the hypocrisy and the reason why the Jedi of old weren't great. And again shows why Luke's Jedi were the peak when they were at their absolute best. The hypocrisy was gone. And, Lucien and his whole gang just really pissed me off. I'm sorry. Then we get to issue 21. Lucien is also far too willing to kill. Notice how Zane goes out of his way to try to find any other way besides killing. Unless that's like the last resort. What Jedi are supposed to do. Luke was especially good at this, usually. I mean, he took it too far in New Jedi Order, where he refused to get violent or to be on the offensive for too long when Kip was right. Just had to mention why Kip's wonderful again. But, I forget exactly what was happening. But, somebody had information or something, and he's like, well, the best way to get rid of this is just to kill her. What? Lucien's crazy. Camper leaves everyone to head to wild space. He takes the worm things with him, and they go to wild space. I don't know if we hear from him again, but that's where he went with them. So I don't know if we'll ever see him again. And also, the big bad of that, the Arcanian guy, dies. Issue 22, Griff. Griff's back. He's in the underworld of Terrace, helping the Resistance against the Mandalorians. But you know who else is there? Along with her terrible, sucky brother. A little younger, Mission. Mission is somebody you also meet pretty early on in the KOTOR games, and she is a companion that you have. She has a friend, a Wookiee, who you end up saving, and he requires a life debt to Revan, and it's just great to see her again. I loved, she was like a little sister. She's so cool. And, when I found out her brother was a butthole, I was like, I hate him. How dare he mistreat you and use you. Anyway, then we get to issue 23. Gadden's cool. So this is an interesting thing. They even brought back a side character, like a very small character from Kotor, who's in the first kind of level area, which is the terrace. But I always had the opinion that he's like one of the nicer criminals. He didn't seem as bad as a lot of other criminals. But in this one, this comic is making me like him even more, and I'm excited to re-experience him in Kotor after having read these comics. And Zane is righteous anger. Zane's, I think at this point he's he's seen Rana because Rana shows up, and Rana, she lectures him about anger and fear and all that. But there's anger that's unjustified and righteous anger. He's been accused of murder, right? Which he did not do. I'd be pretty pissed too. Okay? Everyone would be. It's how you handle that anger. He never intended to kill her. He never intended to hurt her. But he has a right to be upset. He has been framed for something he did not do. And he knows that with 100% certainty. He did not do it. And when a lot of people don't believe you, you have a right to get upset. But again, it's just the hypocrisy of these Jedi is absolutely insane. Issue 24. Zane cries over his dead friend. And Shell, his childhood crush, whose brother was going to become a Jedi Knight who got murdered, couldn't kill him. She fails to, because she sees him crying and has doubts. So Rana finds out and goes to kill Zane herself. And Shell stabs her from behind with a lightsaber. But oh, she is not dead. She survives, actually. And she is stuck. And Zane tries to help her, but Griff thinks that she's trying to harm him. And so he blows up the building. But of course, the interesting thing, though, is, again, that despite everything that Rana has said to him and was trying to do to him, he was still willing to go out of his way to try to save her if she would let him. That doesn't speak to me about a future Dark Lord. But there's also, being too hell-bent on saving everyone, which is also a problem that Anakin tended to have. Wanted to save everyone, but that's just not realistically possible. But Zane had the capability to. It just didn't happen. Now we get to issues 25 to 28, which are basically the first crossover event Vector, where we get to introduce to Celeste more. Again, artwork terrible. I hated it. But furthermore, the Talesman, we get to see the Talesman for the first time. We get described how it was around during Naga Sadow's time, and how the Jedi cult wants to put a stop to it. We also get a reference to Jory Daragon from the Golden Age of the Sith comics. That's pretty much, all that happens. We also get introduced to Celeste, and that's pretty much all that happens in those issues. And then issue 26, we go to a Mando camp, and the Raghouls show up after what's his name? I forget, it's with a P, but he's one of the Mandalorians, and he gets the Talesman on him. Then we get to issue 27. Sorry, there's not much to discuss with these. Zane warns Cassis Fett about the threat, the Ragul threat. And what I really like, I think Cassis Fett is cool. I think it's interesting that Jango and Boba have an ancestor. And I think that's really awesome to see. And I love that, despite the fact that the Mandalorians are enemies, Zane still goes out of his way to warn them. Because he says, Cassis even says, why would you tell us this? We're Mandalorians. And Zane's response is, your people. Love that. We also learn that Celeste actually works for Lucien. She's one of the agents that he has. And he wants Celeste to recover the Talesman and to kill Zane. She, of course, isn't going to do that. And then the Talesman goes on Celeste. And then we get to the final issue we're discussing today, issue 28, and basically, Zane's able to convince her that, this thing's dangerous, you gotta put a stop to it. So we got introduced in the last issue, I think, to like this sort of cryo sleep, sort of force chamber, torture chamber thing. But if Celeste puts herself in there, she will basically, I think, live forever, like cryo sleep, and she might be, suffering, but the Talesman won't have any effect, and she'll be hidden away. And of course, she'll be hidden away till Darth Vader comes upon her, or something like that. I saw art once where Vader's opening this thing and she comes out. I don't know if that's actually what happens, but that won't be for a long time, so we won't see her again for a long time. But Cassius Fett, saying thank you to Zane, decides to bomb the planet the same way they earlier bombed Sirocco. Now he's sad because, all those rat ghouls are dead, and even though they're crazy, they're still Mandalorians, and Celeste is seemingly dead. Of course, that's not true, but I don't think Zane will ever know that because he'll never see her again. He'll be long dead before she pops up again. By the time she pops up again, Anakin will have fallen to the dark side and become Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan will have taken Luke to Tatooine and Leia on Alderaan. So it'll be a long time before we see her again. But overall, these have been issues 13 to 28. Pretty fun, pretty interesting. I'm excited to see where the series continues to go from here and how it will end. And then, my friends, we will discuss the KOTOR video game. So I hope you all join me for that. Until next time, may the Force be with you.